This is a tutorial for the GCSE French AQA speaking exam roleplay at higher tier. The roleplay will be the first part of the speaking exam, and you will get 12 minutes to prepare that and the photo card. This one is the most straightforward one that doesn't need very long answers. There are no marks for complex language, no marks for being fancy. You just need to get the job done, and I would recommend you try and get it done as quickly as possible in about 3 or 4 minutes, so you give yourself at least 8 minutes to spend on the photo card where more detail is needed. So let's look at this example from the specimen materials. It always gives you the place you are in or the person you are talking to. Sometimes you're talking to a friend. Sometimes you're talking in a more formal situation where you'll see vous, you need to talk. You need to use vous really if you're asking questions, and you will ask a question at some point. There will be one surprise question that you can't really prepare for, apart from perhaps make sort of guesses as to what might come up there. At higher tier, the surprise bit might not just be one question. Sometimes there can be 2 questions. You can see in the first bullet point there's an "et" there. There are 2 parts to it. That's often a difference between higher tier and foundation tier, and sometimes it's about tense as well. There's different tense in a role play sometimes at higher tier. But there's always a surprise bit. There's always a question. That means you've got to ask the question when you see the question mark. It's not always the last bullet point either, but clearly it's here it's vegetarian, so you've got to ask something about vegetarians. You're not stating something. You're not telling them I am vegetarian or something. It's got to be a question. So we'll get to that in a minute, because if you use your time wisely, you can read most of these off the card. So hopefully you've spotted you're in a restaurant. You're always going to be the customer. You're never going to be the person working there. Certainly in the ones I've seen, it's always the most likely situation for a tourist. So you're speaking with the serveur or the serveuse, the waiter or the waitress, and you're in a restaurant. So you're obviously getting food or drink or something like that. And it says réservation. Hier is the key here. Hier, yesterday. So you've got to spot that it's past tense. You're in the restaurant. You're talking to them. It says you're in there. So you've obviously walked in and you're saying, I've made a reservation, or I've reserved a table, in the past tense, and votre nom, and your name. So you need to make it as simple as possible, but you do need to get the right tense, and you won't get full marks if you don't put something in the past. So something like j'ai réservé, I've reserved. I've got English spell checker on, that's brilliant. I've reserved une table hier. Put the hier in there. Make it clear to the examiner that you know it's past tense. I've reserved a table yesterday. Je m'appelle, I don't know, Tom or something. Anything. Probably your own name, otherwise it's a bit odd. So, move on. Number 2. Don't make it any more complicated than that. You've done both things. Now, number 2 we can't know until we're asked, but put it on your preparation sheet. Always put it there, because otherwise, under the stress of being in the exam, what you might do is you might read your first answer. The examiner will say something else, and you might then jump to the next thing you've written down, which might be bullet point number 3. You might forget that you've got that exclamation mark there. You will have the card in front of you with you, so you can check, but it's always a good idea, I think, to put it in your script and show yourself that that's the surprise bit coming there. And there might be more than one bit. There was for this one. We'll come to it in a moment. Then we've got arriver, something to do with arriving, en retard, late, une raison, hopefully you know a reason. That comes up a lot, raison. It's often about giving, there's lots of reason giving in higher tier. Raison, reason, key vocab. So you're saying a reason why you were late. Again, it really makes sense for it to be past tense, but you can get away with, it doesn't have to be here. You can say, because it's a fact, I am late, you are late. So keep it simple. Je suis en retard. Don't get late wrong when it's on the card. Je suis en retard. Make it clear that you know why you're giving your reason. Something very simple. Why could you be late? Maybe you missed the bus, if you know that. Parce que j'ai raté le bus. Past tense. Something's happened. Maybe you forgot something. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't know I missed the bus. Maybe you forgot. Maybe j'ai oublié. J'ai oublié mon argent. I forgot my money. Maybe that would work. It's got to be something that's going to make sense in the situation. Why would you be late there at a restaurant? So move on. Number 4, we've done it. Problème. There's a problem avec votre table, with your table, and you only need one detail. Okay. So state it. Say, il y a un problème. Il y a un problème. Whoops. Il y a un problème. Oh, now I've changed font. Il y a un problème avec ma table. State that you know what you're doing. What is this problem? Let's keep it simple. C'est trop petit. It's too small. That's a problem with my table. Why make it complicated? Why start searching for really tricky vocab that you might get wrong? If you can do it with easy vocab, do it. Get it done. That's logical. Some restaurants have small tables, and it's a pain when you can't fit everything on there. Right, we've got to ask this question about vegetarians. Now, lots of people might go, they might know, are you? And they might say, are you a vegetarian? How likely is that going to be that you're going to ask the waiter or the waitress whether they're vegetarian? They're going to look at you as if you're funny. You might not get full marks if you do that. If you ask a question and it's about the thing on the card, you will get some credit. But if it's a bit confusing, you might not get full marks. So what's more likely? It's more likely that you're the vegetarian, or there's somebody in your party that's vegetarian and they need a vegetarian meal. So something like, avez-vous, do you have? If you know that verb avoir and can ask, have you got? Avez-vous des plats? Have you got any dishes? Maybe you don't know dishes. Maybe you could use meals, des repas. Végétarien. Maybe you don't know repas. Do you know food? Avez-vous des repas végétariens? Maybe you don't know repas. Maybe you could do food. Avez-vous de la nourriture? Nourriture végétarienne. Feminine then, but we're only going to lose little language marks if the agreement's not totally right. Avez-vous de la nourriture végétarienne? Have you got any vegetarian food? That would be full marks. A simpler way of doing it might be I don't know, to say, if you didn't know it, if you couldn't think of food or meal or dishes, perhaps you could just say, I am a vegetarian. Is that a problem? So je suis végétarien. Je suis végétarien. C'est un problème? Is it a problem? C'est un problème? Raise your voice at the end. Make it a question. It's very simple vocab that you can get away with there. The surprise bullet point here was 2 parts, as I said. It was, so you've come in, you've said, I've reserved a table yesterday. My name's Tom, and what's likely to be there? Well, they're going to want to know how many people and what else. It was actually pour combien de personnes et pour quelle heure. So it was for what time and for how many people. So we don't even need full sentences here. We could just say pour 20 heures, for 8 o'clock, 20 o'clock. Remember, they like to use the 24-hour clock in French. Pour 4 personnes. Something like that. You wouldn't get to do that in advance, but that's easy enough to do off the top of your head if you recognize key question words like combien, how many, quel, which, à quelle heure, pour quelle heure, time. So part of your revision really needs to be those question words: who, what, why, where, when, how much, which. Make sure you know those, and you're much more likely to be able to respond to that surprise question. And remember, if you can't do it in a full sentence, it usually doesn't matter. With all the other ones, I would try and put them in a sentence. Sometimes it'll work if it's not in a full sentence, but sometimes it won't. And you don't know what the examiner's going to say. You haven't got their script. If it doesn't work without a full sentence, you won't get full credit for it. So if you can, the ones you prepare, always put them in a full sentence. But that answer there you've got in front of you, 15 out of 15, full marks.